Hello dear students, welcome to our lecture series on geography. Today's topic is concept of overpopulation. Dear students, do you know nearly 3/4 of the 4.8 billion people in developing countries lack basic sanitation. Almost a third have no access to clean water, a quarter lack adequate housing, and some lack access to modern health services. This is stated by National Geographic's website on overpopulation. At the beginning of time, the world was created with an exact amount of resources which cannot be identically replicated by man, such as water. According to World Population Awareness, we are now using between 1.2 and 1.5 planets worth of resources that can be sustainably supported. Before mid-century, we will need the capacity of 2 Earths to keep up with our level of demand. The excessive growth of human population, however, destroys this fragile but crucial balance. All these consequences are the result of overpopulation, which we are going to study in this episode under the following subheadings. They are overpopulation, causes of overpopulation, effects of overpopulation, impacts of overpopulation on natural resources, next solutions to overpopulation. To understand the subject, first we have to evaluate what is overpopulation. Overpopulation is an undesirable condition where the number of existing human population exceeds the carrying capacity of Earth. The term often refers to the relationship between the entire human population and its environment. Overpopulation is caused by number of factors: reduced mortality rate, better medical facilities, depletion of precious resources are few of these causes which results in overpopulation. It is possible for a sparsely populated area to become densely populated if it is not able to sustain life. Growing advances in technology with each coming year has affected humanity in many ways. One of these has been the ability to save lives and create better medical treatment for all. A direct result of this has been increased lifespan and the growth of population. In the past 50 years, the growth of population has boomed and has turned into overpopulation. In the history of our species, the birth and death rate have always been able to balance each and maintain a population growth rate. Steve Jones, head of the biology department at University College London, has said, "Humans are 10,000 times more common than we should be according to the rules of the animal kingdom, and we have agriculture to thank for that. Without farming, the world population would probably have reached 500,000 by now." Since the time of bubonic plague in 1400, the growth of population has been on a constant increase. Between the time of the plague and the 21st century, there was been hundreds and thousands of wars, natural calamities, and man-made hazards. However, none of these have made an impression on the population. Developing nations face the problem of overpopulation more than the developed countries, but it affects most of the earth as of now. When we are talking about overpopulation, we should first understand the causes of it. Coming to causes of overpopulation. Decline in death rate. At the root of overpopulation is the difference between the overall birth rate and death rate in populations. If the number of children born each year equals the number of adults that die, then the population will stabilize. The discovery of agriculture by our ancestors was one factor that provided them with the ability to sustain their nutrition without hunting. This created the first imbalance between the two rates, that is death and birth rate. Better medical facilities. Technological advancement was perhaps the biggest reason why the balance has been permanently disturbed. Science was able to produce better means of producing food, which allowed families to feed more mouths. Medical science made many discoveries. Illness that had claimed thousands of lives till now were cured because of the invention of vaccines. More hands to overcome poverty. When talking about overpopulation, we should understand that there is a psychological component as well. For thousands of years, a very small part of the population had enough money to live in comfort. The rest faced poverty and would give birth to large families to make up for the high infant mortality rate. Next is the technological advancement in fertility treatment. Today, there are effective medicines which can increase the enhance of conception and lead to rise in birth rate. Next is the immigration. Many people prefer to move developed countries like where best facilities are available in terms of medical, education, security and employment. The end result in that those people settle over there and those places become overcrowded. This gives rise to shortages of resources. Next, lack of family planning. Most developing nations have large number of people who are illiterate, live below the poverty line and have little or no knowledge about family planning. Getting their children married at an early age increase the chances of producing more kids. Those people are unable to understand the harmful effects of overpopulation and lack of knowledge towards family planning measures. After understanding the causes, now we can look at the effects of overpopulation. Effects of overpopulation. Current projections show a steady decline in the population growth rate, with the population expected to reach between 8 and 10.5 billion between the year of 2040 and 2050. The scientific consensus is that the present population growth and increase in the use of resources is a threat to the ecosystem. The Inter-Academy Panel statement on population growth called the growth in human members unprecedented and stated that many environmental problems such as rising levels of atmospheric carbon dioxide, global warming and pollution was made worse by the population expansion. Let us discuss the effects of overpopulation on the earth. Depletion of natural resources. The effects of overpopulation are quite severe. The first among them is the depletion of resources. The earth can only produce a limited amount of water and food, which is falling short of the current needs. Most of the environmental damage being seen in the last 50 years is because of the growing number of people on the planet. Next, degradation of environment. With the overuse of coal, oil and natural gas, it has started producing some serious effects on our environment. Melting of polar ice caps, changing climatic patterns, rise in sea level are few of the consequences that we have to face due to environmental pollution. Next is the conflicts and wars. Overpopulation in developing countries puts a major strain on the resources it should be utilized for development. Conflicts over water are becoming a source of tension between countries which could result in wars. Rise in unemployment. When a country becomes overpopulated, it gives rise to unemployment as there are fewer jobs to support large number of people. Rise in unemployment gives rise to crimes as people will steal various items to feed their family and provide them basic facilities of life. Next is the high cost of living. As differences between demand and supply continues to expand due to overpopulation, it raises the prices of various commodities including food, shelter and healthcare. This means that people have to pay more to survive and feed their families. Next is the freshwater limits. Since the amount of fresh water available for human consumption is constant, as population grows, the supply of fresh water per person declines. As a result, the amount of water available per person is expected to decline by 74% between 1950 and 2050. Nearly 500 million people around the world are facing water shortages today. Sustainability of soil energy. The rise in grain yield per hectare is slowing in all major grain producing regions. The slower growth in world grain harvest is due to the lack of new land and slower growth in irrigation and fertilizer use. The growth in the irrigated area has fallen behind that of population. With a biotechnology neither providing nor promising any dramatic breakthrough in raising yields, there is little hope for restoring growth in food outputs. Increase in population can also badly affect our natural resources. Let us know what are the impacts of overpopulation on natural resources. Many basic resources are strained by our current population. They are air quality. In many regions of the country, childhood asthma rates have risen dramatically in the past 20 years. The problems are not limited to the industrialized countries with their automobiles and factories. Children in undeveloped countries where people depend on burning wood and dung for their heat and cooking are also at risk. Oil and gas are extremely cheap and fast transportation means that today's huge population depends on. Yet, there is a finite amount of these fossil fuels in the earth and we have already extracted the easy picking in much of the world. As our population and our needs for energy rise, we try to exploit even more difficult resources of energy. Of course, our inefficient energy consumption patterns play a part in the urgency of our needs and we will have to adjust them over time. But equal efforts must be put into keeping our population below the critical levels. Other fuels. Half the world's population relies on the burning wood and dung for cooking and for heating. More and more people live in such regions and have to travel further each day to collect wood and are often exposed to hardship and danger. The ozone layer. 50 years ago, parents told their kids to go play outside because sunshine is good for you. Many parents today don't think that way because the ozone layer of the atmosphere no longer protects us as well from the harmful ultraviolet rays of the sun. The ozone layer is a region of concentrated molecules of a form of oxygen high above the earth. Without it, There would be no life as we know it here because the UV rays from the sun can be very harmful. But various chemicals from human industries, especially chlorofluorocarbons, destroy ozone over the course of years. Some of the most dangerous ones have been banned in many countries, which have slowed the rate of increase in the atmosphere, but they are very long lasting and will continue to deplete the ozone layer for many years. Currently, the layer is being destroyed at the rate of about 4% per decade. The world's forests are another resources that is strained by our growing population. Not only they are the source of fuel and building materials, they also has the ability to sequester greenhouse gases and protect us from the global warming. We are straining our ocean's ability to breed the fish we eat, to impound carbon and to replenish the air. Even the earth's topsoil itself has the limit. Most people don't realize that in many regions, good growing soil is limited to the top 6 inches of the topsoil, and that heavy crop growing is depleting this fertile soil, leading to soil erosion. Next is the species extinction. We are in the midst of one of the greatest extinctions of the other species in the history of the planet. The last one of this magnitude was over 60 million years ago when the dinosaurs became extinct. We are the causes of this one, as we either kill them off or cover over their living space with the houses, roads and development. Next is the habitat destruction. Our exploding population, converting about millions of acres of rural land per year to subdivisions, malls, workplaces, roads, parking lots, resorts and the like. Habitat fragmentation. Not only in habitat being built over, it is also being divided into ever small pieces. Habitat fragmentation reduces species richness and diversity by isolating a species population into subpopulations that may be too near to the minimum value population size and so die off in each fragments. A fundamental finding of ecology is the species area relationship, that the size of the habitat is the primary determinant of the number of species in that habitat. Next, solutions to overpopulation. Overpopulation remains the leading driver of hunger, desertification, species depletion and range of social problems across the planet. Overpopulation is not just about food shortages and human sufferings. Ecologists explain that the collapse in global biodiversity is also linked to overpopulation. China, Mexico and Brazil have been singled out as extreme cases of species loss. The recent rapid increase in human population over the past 2 centuries has raised concerns that humans are beginning to overpopulate the earth. The planet may not be able to sustain large number of people. There are several measures to overcome the problems of overpopulation on earth. Some of them are as follows. First one is the better education. One of the initial measures is to implement policies reflecting social change. Educating the masses helps them to understand the need to have 1 or 2 children at the most. Family planning and efficient birth control can help in women making their own reproductive choices. It is one of the most commonly agreed assumptions that sections of the society deprived of education contribute more to overpopulation. A lack of education coupled with poverty gives rise to simple law in more classes, that is, more hands, more money. This leads to the requirement of more land, more food and more basic resources. Education would make these classes aware of the threats of overpopulation and would also provide them and their children better payment, eliminating the more hands, more money model. Next is the making people aware of family planning. As population of this world is growing at a rapid pace, raising awareness among people regarding family planning and letting them know about serious effects of overpopulation can help to control population growth. Next solution is tax benefits or concessions. Government of various countries might have to come with various policies related to tax exceptions to curb overpopulation. One of them might be to ignore of certain parts of income tax or lowering rates of income tax for those who have single or two children. Next is the knowledge of gender education. Imparting gender education to young kids at elementary levels should be must. It's a long list and more could be added, as some point out problems are not entirely the result of overpopulation. We could consume less, we could use resources more efficiently, and we could distribute them in ways that would not be deprived so many of the access to the basics. But there is no doubt that these problems could be solved more easily if we don't add 3 billion or 5 billion or many more people to our lovely planet. So, we can summarize the topic. It is time to realize that there is a swapping between quality of life and quantity of life. In a planet with limited resources, sustainable growth is very essential. Of course, humanity could all shift to vegetarian diets, give up national parks and crowd in a few more billion people, hoping that new levels of efficiency will allow us to survive. But it is well to ask if this really is the kind of world that we want. There is much we can do to reduce the suffering caused by human population growth. But recognizing that overpopulation is a dangerous problem constitutes a critical first step. We can no longer prevent it, but there are ways to control it. Students, today's topic is enlighten every one of us towards our earth and the problems that the world is facing due to overpopulation. It is our responsibility to protect our earth and environment.